And welcome back to another episode of Pokemon Knowledge. Now, I will tell you some things, and one of those things is even a broken watch is right twice a day. And I'll tell you what, I make a lot of videos on this channel. I've had a lot of different conversations, so I guess even this channel has been right at least twice throughout the history of this hobby. But, no, seriously, one of the things that kind of I don't know if it drives me crazy, if it just bothers me a little bit, is we're seeing what's happening now with the prices of all the alt arts for the late Sun and Moon sets. And a lot of people are like, can you guys believe this price? Isn't this so crazy? And the funniest thing is there was multiple videos where people would ask me in the chat, they'd say, PK, can you name a card you think is undervalued? And constantly one of the cards that I talked about more than anything else, and if you are not new to this channel, you know for a fact I've mentioned it multiple times, and I said Mimikyu and Gengar from Team Up is probably a card that's undervalued. And look at what that card's doing. Now, for the Latios and Latios, I never thought that card was undervalued. That was actually one of the very first kind of alternative art cards we saw run. But yeah, there was a lot of Sun and Moon cards for a long time were undervalued. And in fact, if you go back on one of my lives when I had a guest on, people were even saying, if you were going to do a hypothetical buyout, what would you buy out? And that was one of the cards I threw out as a possibility of the buyout. So, yeah, goes to the title of this video. It's always time to buy Pokemon, and that's a problem too. Is people only ever want to chase that thing that has already gone up in value. They never want to start picking up stuff or start acquiring positions when things are at their lowest dollar amount. Now, I don't know exactly why that is. Maybe a lot of that factor has to do with people are just not really 100% sure on what they're buying, and what they need is they need somebody else to give them that confirmation bias in order to tell them, hey, whatever it is you're buying is the right thing to buy. So that is a little bit of what I'm afraid of. I hope that's not really truly the case though. But I want you guys out there, let me know how the internet is, because I am hard connected into my router. I got the longest Ethernet cord I could buy. It's 200 feet long. It's an absolute, I bought way too much Ethernet cord. But hopefully this will be good and we won't have any lag issues. But yeah, it's just crazy. Constantly people are looking for that next big card, next big set. And I feel like they're there all the time. And sometimes you just have to buy things when the good deals pop up. And one of the good deals that popped up really recently was, if you guys haven't had a chance, when Nick Old School Pokemon came on my channel, one of the things I talked about to him in that video was earlier that day before he jumped on, GameStop accidentally posted their build and battle stadiums, where it should have probably been like the build and battle boxes. They were just the entire stadium. So you get the 2 build and battle stadiums and then the 4 packs. So 12 packs total. They had it listed for $19.99. Listen, that morning I was not in the market for Silver Tempest, but because that price was so low, I instantly became in the market for that product. And that was a great deal, $19.99. And then that price was so low that it appears that GameStop accidentally priced that on their website at $19.99. And that $19.99 was supposed to be for just one single build and battle box. It wasn't supposed to be for the build and battle stadium. So that was a mistake they made. Luckily, GameStop has been ordering all these, and a lot of people have now been getting their GameStop orders. And then there were some people who are actually next level and were so nervous, they went to their GameStops, and their GameStops did the in-store match, they matched the online price, because that is something that GameStop will do. If you walk in, they'll match their online price. So a lot of people took advantage of that. But now, on the other end of the spectrum, though, this is the problem. How many people saw that Pokemon TCG Drops posted that Twitter post? How many people looked at it and they said, $19.99 for 12 packs of Silver Tempest, I'm going to pass. And Nick Old School Pokemon, somebody who is as actively engaged in this hobby as you can possibly get, he was on my channel. I messaged him that earlier that morning because he was coming on. I sent him a screenshot. I was like, hey, Nick, this is probably a good deal. He looked at it. He said, yes, it is a good deal. And he still didn't buy it. But how many people out there exist who just didn't pick up that great deal? You know, you pick up 3 of those, that's 36 packs for $60. Like, plus tax, there's no shipping included because at that point, it's free shipping from GameStop. So, plus taxes, it brings you to like $65 for 36 packs of Silver Tempest. When good deals pop up, you just got to take advantage of them, even when you're not in the market. And one of the driving factors of this video is earlier today, I saw a poorly titled eBay auction. It wasn't like this stop the world type auction, like the greatest deal I've ever found. It was just a Skyla from Shining Fates. I picked it up for $4 because it was poorly titled. It didn't even have Skylar's name in the auction. I wasn't even looking for that card. I just happened to run across it, put it on my watch list, and when it ended, I picked it up for $4 with $1 shipping, so I'm all into that card for $5. How much is a Skyla from Shining Fates really worth? $10? So it's not like this ridiculous deal that I got. Like, I saved $5 on a card that spend $15. It's a clean card. It was just a poorly titled auction. Spend $15 to grade. I'm going to be into that card for $20. I'm probably going to break even if that card hits a 9. Even at a super low entry point of, $5 all in plus $15 a grade and 20. That card in a PSA 9 probably at auction sells for like 24. But if I hit a 10, I win big on that card. And I do really well. So this is a problem. I wasn't in the market to buy that Skyla card. I wasn't. It just happened to pop up on my screen as I was searching something completely different. Because it was poorly titled, it came up in my search results. I saw it was a decent price. I bought it. But it goes to the title of this video. It's always time to buy Pokemon. And by always time, meaning when the good deals come up, you guys gotta start pulling the trigger. There's a lot of cards right now today that I do believe are undervalued. And it could take a little while. I don't know how long a little while for some of this stuff to start, like going up in price. Some of these cards, I look at a lot of like black and white cards right now. Listen, I've been speculating on black and white cards at this point for an extremely long time. And black and white cards, while they have gone up, don't get me wrong, they haven't done what I've hoped they're doing. But I've been acquiring positions. Not only have I been acquiring positions of black and white cards, I've been picking up positions in later black and white sets. Sets that have a lot more options than for like the full art type cards. Because when you look at those really early sets, when you look at, say, black and white base, or emergent powers, or noble victories, or maybe not so much like Next Destinies, but, some of these later ones, well, Next Destinies is a later set, but like some of these later sets like Next Destinies, like how many chase cards there are in that set exponentially increases from these early sets. Black and white base, you have 2 full arts plus secret rare Pikachu. For emergent powers, you only have the Tornadus and the Thundurus. You only have 2 art cards. You have to go to these later sets and it starts to expand. But still, those cards they haven't caught on yet. I don't know when the market's going to catch on to stuff like that. Don't know. For whatever reason, the market's only catching on to stuff that's relatively recent. So, you could start looking at what's going on with these later Sun and Moon sets. Beautiful artworks. People really trying to get into that like alternative art like train. Then you go back just one generation earlier and you start to look at XY, and you look at a lot of these XY cards and you start to really look at it and you go, there are some really undervalued potential cards in XY, especially some, even if you want to go like later XY, your breakthroughs, your break points. You start to look at some of these fan favorite Pokemon, or you start to go to some of these mid-era like XY sets, your Primal Clash, your Roaring Skies, the ones that people don't really talk about enough. How often does Primal Clash get brought up on live streams? Probably not that often, But then you have like some really banger sets like Ancient Origins, stuff like this. But then even pulling yourself earlier than XY and you look at Sun and Moon, yeah, there's a lot of hype going on right now. You got your Team Up and your Unbroken Bonds and your Unified Minds and your Cosmic Eclipse, and like there's a lot of focus going on there, but there's sets in between too. Like you still have Lost Origins in there. Celestial Storm is still in there. These are not bad sets. And then especially when you look at Lost Origin and you look at what Lost Thunder, there's too many lost. Too many lost. Lost Thunder. When you look at Lost Thunder and you look at it as being like one of the most criminally underrated sets of Pokemon, I think a lot more people are looking at Lost Thunder now than they were like maybe a year or two ago, but that's still criminally underrated sets. And then when you start going back, the only problem is the further back you start going, when you start getting through your X and Y's and you start getting to your like black and whites, but then remove yourself from black and white and go a little bit earlier and start to look at some of these Heart Gold Soul Silver cards. Start to look at primes. Is primes early? Are we just scratching the surface on primes? When you look at your Heart Gold Soul Silver base or Unleashed, Undaunted, or Triumphant, and you look at those, or even Call Legends. You look at like Call Legends. That is a fantastic set. It's like, are we still a little bit too early for some of this stuff? And that is a lot of this. A lot of what I think Pokemon is just being early to the scene. And I know to say the words being early to the Heart Gold Soul Silver timeline is a ridiculous statement to put. Because if anything, you should be extremely late to the Heart Gold Soul Silver timeline. But you're probably not. And the reason why I say that is because this hobby, and I've mentioned this before, this hobby only has the illusion of an established hobby. It is not an established hobby. It just has the illusion of it. Because a lot of people who are getting back into Pokemon are still just like taking their training wheels off. A lot of the new collectors that re-entered Pokemon entered in that 2020 crazy hype period. And then even before that, the big like mass entrance of people was just a couple years earlier in 2016 with like the Pokemon Go for like hype. From Pokemon Go to now is only 7 years. There's still people just kind of getting their training wheels off, and they're just barely scratching the surface on some of the stuff. And then you remove yourself a little bit earlier from Heart Gold Soul Silver and you look at like Platinum or Rise and Rival or Supreme Victors or Arceus. There's still people are just, how many people could even tell you the secret rares of a Rise and Rivals? You know? How many people can tell you the secret rares in Supreme Victors? Why do we care about those kind of cards? Because they're reprints of some Watsy nostalgia overload in those sets, you know? Or when you look at something like an Arceus, the last of the Platinum series, why are the Arceus so cool? Well, you got the 9-card Arceus, collection. And those 9 cards right now are not expensive today. But they might be. And then we already talked about Heart Gold Soul Silver and all those, but like legend cards right now, criminally underrated. When you look at, and again, criminally underrated is subjective. I'm not talking like Gem Mint 10 bangers. But when you look at like the Lugia or the Ho-Ho from Heart Gold Soul Silver base, when you can pick up both Lugia pieces for $80 for light play condition, that card is something that just displays fantastic. The way his body's going on in the water, and like it's just the way that the words are broken apart around his feet and stuff, like that is artwork. That is the definition of amazing artwork in this hobby. And for anybody who doesn't own legend cards, or they haven't made their way that far down the rabbit hole yet, like, but you love the artwork and you love that sort of stuff in this hobby, why you don't get there already? But I do believe someday people will get there. This is a problem. I've been thinking that for years now. I thought people would like legend cards way longer than we have in fact seen people start to pick up those cards. Now, don't get me wrong. There's still a lot of those cards that exist. They're not like crazy, disgustingly abundant, but they exist. There's a lot out there. And there is definitely that condition rarity factor of it, and that's why you start to see these prices go real high. But they're still beautiful cards. But people are always asking, they're like, what do you think is going to be the next thing? Any of these things could be the next thing, really. You know, can legend cards be the next thing? Maybe. Can prime cards be the next thing? Maybe. Can some of these secret rare cards from the black and whites be the next thing? Yes. Can some of these full arts from the black and white timeline be the next thing? Yes. Can some of the secret rares from the platinum timeline be the next thing? Yes. Can some of these just regular EXs from the Nintendo timeline, can some of these really be the next thing? Maybe. I don't know. You know, like your early Nintendo stuff, when you look at your Ruby and Sapphire and your Sandstorm and Dragon and Team Magma versus Team Aqua and your Hidden Legends into Fire Red Leaf Green, there's great EX cards in every single one of those. Sandstorm sticks out to me. Fire Red Leaf Green is good. A lot of Gen 1 fan favorite Pokemon. EX Dragon, take it or leave it. You know, I mean, great secret rares in it. But like later Nintendo stuff, even like the early Nintendo stuff, Team Rocket Returns, Deoxys, Emerald. Emerald has some of the best reverse holos in the game, at least some of the most beautiful like stamps for them. Or Legend Maker is beautiful. Delta Species is beautiful. So many good cards, so many EXs in Delta Species. Delta Species hits a home run every time you look at the set list. You just go, wow. Or you look at the later stuff when you start talking about like these Halm Phantoms or your Crystal Guardians or Dragon Frontiers or Power Keepers. It's like, man, there's bangers in every one of those, and people just get blinded by gold stars. But it's all a matter of trying to figure out, like, what is the next thing? What, and we spend a lot of time thinking about this. What is the next thing? You know? There was a while, and this is the thing, like, the next thing moves. The next thing isn't like static. It doesn't stay the same. It moves. The next thing moves. When you think back, bringing yourself back, the first things that went big, the first things that moved, early WotC holos, base set Jungle Fossil, those went way before everything else. First edition base. Then you had people had to start getting a little bit niche, and they started going after the Shadowless, and then they started going after Jungle. But then if you want to go after Jungle, you got to go a little nichier, so then you go no symbol. And then the next thing that ran after that was like trophy cards, and then the next big thing that ran was gold stars. And then we saw what happened with like the modern craziness and the hype. And then, you know, then the first thing that really ran was all these, you know, Sun and Moon Rainbow full arts, and then that hype died down. And then you had some, you know, all the hype in 2020, and then it was like your chase cards that were available for modern, and the available modern chase cards were VMAX Charizards and VMAX Rainbow Rare Chunkachus, until eventually people started to be introduced into alternative arts, and then the alternative art market just totally ran, and then until eventually Evolving Skies came out, and then people just really went hard into Evolving Skies, and then people started to pull back from alternative arts for modern cards, and then they started to chase some of this Japanese stuff, and then they started chasing Japanese stuff because they started to see what prices started to go crazy at this. But then once the Japanese market went crazy, then they started to now pull into this late Sun and Moon shit, and now they're looking at all this Sun and Moon, you know, cards, and these prices are starting to run. Like, there's ebbs and flows of the market, and that is just a decade worth of like ebbs and flows of hype going in, hype going out of these cards, and it's just a matter of like, what is the next thing gonna be? And it's possible that the next thing hasn't even hit yet. You know, in fact, you can start pulling yourself back a little bit earlier than 2022 and just look at some of the cards that, you know, really went craziest in the boom or craziest in the hype period. You know, when you start to look at like some of the cards that have now, in a way, become huge staples of this hobby. When you start to look at your full art Pikas and your Ponchos, Pikachus, and you look at all those boxes and those Japanese boxes, or you start to look at like the Scream promos and you look at what the Scream promos did, and then you just start to go, okay, a lot of these are, you know, going crazy. But more importantly, when you think about the title of this video, it's always time to buy Pokemon. There are always cards in no matter what timeline, no matter how crazy hype, no matter how low of lows we're at, there are always cards that are probably going to do something, or great opportunities that make themselves apparent. One of the things that made themselves super apparent recently and this recently is like within the last year or two, is those stamp box promos. When you look at that Pikachu stamp box promo, you look at that Cramorant promo, and even I bought as many of those as I could financially afford without like bankrupting myself and my household, and I still feel I didn't buy enough. But I thought that was a great deal. And then the same thing later was special delivery Charizards, and we beat that to death. And special delivery Charizard was a free card as long as you spent $20 on Pokemon Center. There are cards out there, products that exist out there, that it was never a question of if these were going to do good. It was never a question of if. It was always a question of they're just going to do well. Then there were other products that came out later, and you definitely brought up a lot of question marks of how much supply of this stuff is going to hit. But like one of those products that was very apparent was like the Celebrations UPC. If anybody was able to pick that up at MSRP and they passed by it on their Target or Walmart shelves and they walked by a Celebrations UPC, they were insane. There was probably never anybody that walked by those. They were impossible to get. They were impossible to get for pre-orders, whether it was PokemonCenter.com or GameStop.com or BestBuy.com. They were next to impossible. And we waited for reprints of those things to come, and they never did. And because they never did come, prices of those never really retraced. And the lowest that they were ever really selling at was around $225 to $250. That was the lowest. That was always about double MSRP. And sure, now we're starting to see those prices start to creep up a little bit more. They were stagnant for a little while. But it's just crazy. It's crazy. Just... It's crazy trying to just pick the next winner. And the only way you're going to do it is just, it's always time to buy. If people are out there listening to this video and you guys just haven't been making buys lately, you have all the tools you need at this point. And this late in the game, you have all the tools you need to be making buys. If you're not making buys, if you're not doing something, you probably should. Even if it's as simple as picking up some mass-produced Japanese promos right now. Listen, no secret. There are a lot of promos that are currently on the market. Some of them have Pikachu on them. Most of them have Pikachu on it, whether that's Pikachu dressed up as an Easter Bunny, whether that's Pikachu on a surfboard, whether that's Pikachu doing whatever. There are a million freaking different Japanese, whether it's Pichu dressed up. There's a million different like $5 Japanese promos right now. $10 you can pick them up at auction. Between, let's just say $5 to $15. Japanese promos. Most of them are like Pokemon Center promos from different Pokemon Centers, stuff like this. They're out there. They're super abundant right now. Start picking up these once in a while, like every day. You don't know what to buy, spend $20. Pick up 4 Pikachu promos. Just pick them up. Put them away. Keep doing it. Don't stop. Don't stop doing it. You're gonna regret it. And this is the thing. Pokemon, I've talked about it before and I've said it and I'll say it again. Pokemon is a freight train and just keeps going. It's funny, I watch a lot of cards that I picked up, a lot of certain cards, and prices just started to creep up on me. And I was just like, man, you don't realize how good you have it until it's too late sometimes. Even when you're going hard on certain cards and you're picking up a ton of cards, sometimes you just don't realize how good it is when you have it. But you got to constantly be doing it. Just constant. It's never ending. Don't give up on searching eBay. Don't give up on your, items newly listed. Don't give up on your items ending soonest. Don't give up on your search terms of Pokemon graded by CGC, items ending soonest, cross-grade plays. God, I just picked up a freaking diamond graded slab the other day. Never in a million years would I pay to have a card graded by diamond graded. But I picked it up because it was so disgustingly undervalued for the card that was surrounded by the plastic. And when that card got to me in the mail, first thing I did was cut it out. I have, for the first time now, cut out a diamond graded card from a slab Those diamond graded slabs, I don't know what they made them with. They are not made out of like hard plastic. They don't shatter. They're like, when you try cutting into those with like clips like this, it's like cutting into wet glue. I have no clue how the consistencies of those slabs are made, but it was one of the hardest slabs I've ever had to crack into. It wasn't like a CGC, it wasn't like a PSA, it wasn't like any sort of slab that I've cracked into. It was crazy, but I was cracking into the slab, and I remember in my head thinking to myself, I said, oh my God, I feel so bad for whoever graded this card, because they left so much money on the table just because they did not optimize the label. And the label was still a 9. And that person was probably happy that they got a 9. It was a strong 9. I think at a PSA, it still probably has a 20% gem mint 10 rate. It's still probably more likely than not going to get a 9. But it was a strong 9. That was the reason I bought this card. And the person who graded it just left so much money. I don't know how much it costs a grade with diamond grade and service. Don't know. Maybe it's $10 a card. Maybe it's $15. God, I hope it's not $20. But if they sent that same card to PSA under $15, which is what I'm going to do, there was so much left on the bone of this card that somebody could have graded it, sold it to me, and then I could crack it and then spend another $15 to grade it and still have a ton of meat left on the bone. There is a problem, and people are making this problem all the time. And that's why you could do these, but don't stop. Don't stop finding these auctions. Don't find these like undervalued cards just because they're in different pieces of plastic. Please get to the point where you're able to value the card that's inside and not the shitty casing that's around it. I don't care if you're a PSA fan. I don't care if you're a CGC fan. I don't care if you're a diamond grading fan. I don't care if you're a GMA fan. I don't care if you're an ace grading fan. I don't care if you're an SGC fan. I don't care who you grade with. But if you are grading with the sole intention to sell that card, because the person that graded that card with diamond grade is graded it with the intention to sell it. Otherwise, I would not have been able to purchase it. It would still be in that person's collection. If you are going to make this decision, if you are going to grade with the intention of selling, please, for the love of God, optimize. Don't leave money on this table. Please don't do it. And I'm telling you right now, by you doing that is going to be detrimental for your long-term success in this hobby. I don't know when this ends. Listen, just because it's in a piece of plastic, does it instantly become overvalued? And the sense is like, yes. But as a seller, it's going to be the way you're going to optimize. Now, there is a next level to that. You do have to understand something too. I had a video where I cracked a ton of CGC slabs, cards that I thought were criminally undergraded by CGC, cracked them over the PSA, and a lot of those cards upgraded. But then, very recently, TCA Gaming cracked 25 PSA slabs and sent all 25 of those cards to CGC. And when I did my video, you want to know what everybody said? They said, everyone commented, see, this is why I grade with CGC. I like a harsher grader. I like true grades. And then everybody said PSA just gives out easy grades. So that was what everyone said, why my cards all went from lower grades at CGC to higher grades at PSA. Guess what? When Rusty graded 25 PSA cards, he cracked those 25, submitted those same 25 cards to CGC, and he had 100% rate of cards that upgraded, meaning his PSA cards were all undergraded in comparison to CGC. Where are all the people that were like, hey PK, PSA just gives out higher grades. Hey PK, CGC is the harsher grader. That's the true grade. Where are all those people? I didn't see those people on his video. When I make a video, everybody had to come out of the woodwork and put those comments. Where were they on Rusty's video? I thought PSA gives out 10s. Why did every single one of those 25 cards Rusty cracked and submitted to CGC? Why do they all get higher grades, huh? Maybe the fact of the matter is that people are just so blinded by their hatred that they're not able to see the cards. When I cracked those cards out of CGC, I cracked those because I thought the cards were undergraded. The reason Rusty cracked those cards from PSA is because he thought those cards were undergraded. You need to get to this point in the hobby where you can just identify things that are undergraded. And guess what? Every single grading card company does it. PSA does it. CGC does it. SGC does it. Beckett does it. GMA does it. Diamond Grading Service does it. Ace Grading Service does it. And any other fucking ABC acronym you could put, they do it. Everyone misgrades cards, but that's what you need to learn how to identify when you're buying cards. If you are going to start to do that cross-grading play, that optimizing play, because they exist. It's not going to be on a card-to-card basis. It's not. It's going to take a lot of time, a lot of effort, but it's there. And when you do it, it's great. One of the best places to do it is on PWCC. PWCC gives you front and back photos of a lot of cards. You can scroll through a lot of cards real quickly, look at fronts, real quickly look at backs. You know, if you're going to start to try to do these cross-grading plays and you're looking at like Probostine and Probostine doesn't give you back images of cards, guess what? You're just going to, you can't do it. You know, there's some auction platforms, some big sale, sellers, you can do it. Speaking of like undergraded cards, listen, this is not really a secret, but you want to watch Z&G's Emporium. Z&G goes through all his consignments at the beginning. He flips through a lot of those grades, and James has stopped and literally used the words, "This card looks like it might have been undergraded." When he says stuff like that, pause the video. Spend the fucking 5 seconds to watch the video and see what James is talking about. Because maybe it's worth it for you. You know? Especially when you start talking like percentages and dollar amounts, and you could pick up cards that are, were graded 8s and have crossover chances at 9s. Listen, that is a real thing. I've recently cross-graded cards from PSA back to PSA and got all higher grades because I thought the cards graded by PSA were undergraded. So you can do it within the same grading card company. You could do all these things, but you just have to do it. And then you just have to always be buying in every market. Just don't be buying the crap that exists out there. Don't buy stuff at the height of the market, at the top of the market. When a set is brand new and the card prices are at the highest, that probably shouldn't be where you're buying cards. You probably should wait. Are you going to lose out on some cards sometimes? Yes. But for the vast majority of cards, you will probably do way better just sitting back and waiting. Watching markets. Listen, if there's a card you've been eyeballing now for a couple years or 2 years, and you've been watching that card and it's been doing a slow, steady trajectory down, and it's kind of just been leveling out, and you've seen a lot of sales at a certain dollar amount, and you start to see that card tick up, that could be an indicator that that card has finally bottomed out. And if you are actually following these cards and spending the time to research these cards and watch years worth of sales, when that card starts to uptick, that might be your time to start acquiring your positions because that uptick could keep going up. Can't promise you that. Not everything is going to be winners. They're not. You just have to spend the time. And you guys are spending the time. Most people out there watching these lives get into the 33-minute mark on a live of somebody just rambling their freaking ass off. I'm telling you, I'm begging you guys out there. There are so many opportunities right now in today's hobby. In fact, we could arguably be at the precipice of the most opportunities available. Listen, there's a lot of things happening. A lot of sets are going out of rotation. A lot of sets we know are not getting printed. There can be a lot of just even sealed product routes, individual pack routes. There are a lot of sun and moon packs that you can pick up in lots, pick them up raw, pick them up in collection boxes, pick them up different ways. And then as soon as you break down the product, the pack itself is worth close to, if not as much as the entire product. Just start doing this. Start putting stuff to the side. Start getting ready. And I don't know when the market's going to turn on a dime or go crazy. Did I know that like Sun and Moon cards were eventually just going to skyrocket overnight? Because that's pretty much what it feels like. No, but I knew that they were going to go up. That's why I talked about them on so many lives, especially using the words Mimikyu and Gengar together on a card from Team Up. All right. I'm just asking you guys to please start buying. Don't take your foot off the gas if you can. If you guys are like all the obvious, if you guys are over leveraged on credit card debt, if you guys are over leveraged, you can't afford to buy these cards, don't buy them. But if you have set yourself up in the last 3 years, hopefully you have set yourself up in this hobby for success. You should have all the pieces in place where now should be the time you're able to just make money. Sale after sale, buy after buy. You shouldn't really be losing on buys anymore. You shouldn't be losing on sales at this point, as long as your price points and your entry points are not disgustingly high. As long as you didn't make that cardinal mistake and have all entry points too high, you should be doing so well right now. And if you are not doing well right now, today, in 2023, close to mid 2023, and especially if you got back in 2020 or early 2021 and you got a year or two to shake out all the cobwebs and make all the beginner mistakes, if you are still making those mistakes today and you are still grading cards and losing money, or you're selling cards and losing money, or buying cards and instantly watching that card decrease in value, if that is still happening to you today, you need to just do this. Say time out. Time out. Look. Say, what are you doing wrong? Because everyone else is able to do well right now. So keep that in mind. I'm begging you. But anyways, we are going to have, on a happier note, tomorrow does mark the next episode of the podcast series with myself, Cool and Trainer Ryan, Rattle Pokemon. Always a fun time. Rattle Pokemon is not doing his Friday night premieres. I know, it's sad. But Ryan is still doing his Friday night pregame. So as soon as Ryan's pregame is over, you guys probably either be redirected here or you guys could just hop in. That podcast is always my most fun time of the month. And I never know where the conversations are going to go. They're going to go somewheres, but it's always a lot of fun. And I recommend, if you guys do enjoy those podcasts, hop in Friday night. Drink some beers. I can't drink too much because my wife's due any minute now. And as long as she doesn't go between the time we're recording this live and the start of tomorrow's live, we'll still be doing it. But, yeah. And then tonight, after this live's over, I'm going to go turn on Netflix. I'm going to do a little homework. I'm going to try to watch like 1 or 2 episodes of that new, the new Ken Golden show on Netflix, like about golden auctions and stuff. So I can at least have a little bit of a background in that. All right. We got number 1 mod in the game, Drew. Always good to see Drew. Drew messaged me, said, PK, when are you going live? I was like, oh, dude, I'm busy. NampP90, good to see you, bud. He showed me some pretty cool cards, too, with some hidden Raichus and stuff. It's always cool to look at artwork of different artists and see how they hide, like, their older artworks in the background of some stuff and how they're able to tie sets together with artwork. Pokebondo, Science Guy 87. Kevin Clare said, we at 6,969 subs yet. We are not there yet. But if you guys are out there watching this and you are not subscribed, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Let's get this channel to the coveted 6,969 subscribers. Once I hit that goal, I feel I've finally made it. But we're slowly getting there. Every day we just get a couple more subscribers, couple more. Brody Plays says, had a similar thing in Australia this past week. I'm guessing one of the stores there said doing Silver Tempest stadiums for $40 Australian, about $26.50 USD. Yeah, man, that's a great price. Muffin Swagger said he's still waiting on his GameStop Silver Tempest. I heard that they ran out, but are still honoring those who are able to purchase. Okay, I didn't hear that they ran out, but yeah, I did hear that they are honoring everybody that bought it, which is great by GameStop. And usually GameStop is pretty good at honoring things. Even when the whole Charizard UPC stuff went crazy and they had like unlimited pre-orders and people were going into store and pre-order and 4 and 10 and 5 and 6, they still ended up honoring all those Charizard UPC pre-orders. Obviously, after the fact, we come to find out that Charizard UPCs were not underprinted. They were mass produced. But it was still cool that, yeah, GameStop's always been pretty good at that. The only thing I've ever heard of GameStop doing is if you pre-order with GameStop, pre-order is more likely to cancel your pre-order if you do not pay like 100% in full for your pre-order. So anytime you guys do a GameStop pre-order, I always recommend, instead of just putting the $5 down, which you can, I always recommend just paying upfront for everything. And this goes all the way back to Shining Fates. And Shining Fates, obviously, you could probably still go into Walmart today and pick up Shining Fates, but at release, Shining Fates went absolutely crazy. ETBs were selling pre-orders for like 120, 130. It was madness. But GameStop allowed you to do pre-orders of Shining Fates, and they canceled a lot of those pre-orders on people, for people that only put the $5 down, but people that paid up in full for their Shining Fates, they honored all those pre-orders. So just something to keep in the back of your mind, that we know that they've done this in the past. Justin said, alternative art is like alternative rock. It's going to come and go. Pokedama said, thoughts on the guy who sang the Pokemon theme song. So you're talking about Jason Page. Authenticating and selling his own graded cards for $1,000 on eBay. I don't hate the hustle. He's definitely on something. I don't know. Jason Page has always just like rubbed me the wrong way, kinda. But if he's selling those cards for $1,000 and people are buying them, hey man, really riding that golden goose for as long as you can, hey, huh, Jason Page. But hey, whatever. This is the thing, Pokedama, and this might be a hot take. The guy selling those cards, I could freaking care less. The only thing is the guy who's buying those cards. That's the guy I feel we need to have an intervention with, that guy, and saying, yeah, I understand that this listing for this $1,000 authenticated card exists. That's fine. Just don't buy it. That's what I would be more nervous about, is that the buyer on that end. And we would need to have an intervention with them and tell them, please do not do this. Muffin Swagger said, still don't understand how the Moonbryon Raw is $200 more expensive than an OG Neo Unlimited Moonbryon in a 9. Yeah, so you're talking like the Neo Discovery Moonbryon. Yeah, man. It's hard to say. People love their modern Pokemon. There is no denying it. People love modern. If I had the option, and one, I'm not a buyer of a modern Moonbryon, but I understand why people like it. I've already gone out and said, if I pull that Moonbryon myself, meaning if I open a pack of Evolving Skies and I pull that Moonbryon and I grade it and get a 10, everything that I've ever said tells me I should sell that card, but I'd probably keep that card as a personal collection. I made a whole video literally on that topic. But with that said, if I was going to buy that card raw, meaning I didn't pull it, if I was going to buy a modern Moonbryon or a vintage Neo Discovery Moonbryon, I'm buying the vintage Neo Discovery Moonbryon all day, every day. In fact, I'd probably just pick that card up in a 9, and that's one of those cards I would actually pick up already graded. Probably not try to hunt down a like nice minty Neo Discovery Umbreon raw copy. I'm just going to pick up the 9 because of what it's selling for in comparison to, you know, I'm not really like 100% on, I want to say the first edition PSA 9 Neo Discovery Moonbryon's probably around $1,500 if I had to take a guess. So I'd probably buy, and again, you said unlimited, but I'd still pick up like the first edition one. Let's see. We got Mr. Rattle Pokemon, podcast co-host Rattle Pokemon. It's been a while since I talked to Rattle. This will be the first time I've talked to Rattle in a public forum since Rattle pulled the Moonbryon, speaking of the Moonbryon. And in fact, there's going to be a lot of stuff to talk about because it wasn't just Rattle had big pulls. Cool Train Ryan had 2 fire pulls in the last week or two. One of those obviously opened up a Holland Phantoms pack, pulled the Gold Star Mewtwo, which is crazy. to see gold stars be open is such a very rare occurrence, and then for Ryan to finally do it. And in fact, the last gold star I saw pulled was by Pokemon Radar John, and Pokemon Radar John also opened the same Mewtwo gold star. So it is pretty crazy with all the gold stars that those were the two most recent pulls that I could think of off the top of my head. I know John graded his. I think John's came back a 9. Ryan, when he opened his, he said it looked like probably a 9 contender. But the fact that that's like going to be a giveaway thing too is ridiculous. And then another monster pull Ryan had was that miscut Gengar card, if you saw that one. Yeah, Ryan had some pretty crazy pulls recently. Franklin Delano Bluth says, got a Near Mint Quick Starter gift set Scyther Hollow for approximately $20 USD coming from Japan in a week. Deals out there, yeah. There's a lot of deals out there, especially for a lot of this Japanese cards. When it comes to truly near mint, like more vintage cards, Japanese sellers are definitely the way to go. There are there's like 3 or 4 Japanese sellers that really stick out on the top of my head who really sell some pretty minty Japanese stuff if you watch their auctions. Not every single one of their auctions are super near mint, but a lot of them are. And here's one of them. I'm sure there's a lot of you guys out there have bought from these guys before, but there's a couple Japanese sellers out there that are they're worth it to give them a follow. And just for some of these Japanese sellers, like, you just got to watch their auctions and you pick up like 1 or 2 cards. You really look through the auctions. You need to know which ones you kind of want before the auctions go live. And, especially when I think about some of these like level X cards and stuff, so you go back to like the Diamond and Pearl timeline. For Japanese level X cards were always relatively tough to source, but recently, so many good near mint Japanese level X cards have popped up. And especially when you think about some of these Japanese level X cards, there was a while where prices were really going crazy because pops were still so low. We have seen a lot of those pops get slightly flushed out. Slightly is very subjective because some of these pops we've seen like, 2 or 3 increases, and that doesn't sound like a lot, but for some of these cards it's definitely a big increase. And I think some of these pops are definitely still going to get flushed out a lot more because of some of these level X cards we're seeing hit the market in raw form. I think a lot of them are just kind of swaying those level X pops a little bit for Japanese, but like that was a play for a while and it still is a play. And the problem is just I don't know what the buyer pool for those higher end Japanese cards like those level X's really looks like. I think it's a relatively shallow buyer pool, but I could be wrong. And I think the reason why it is shallow is because there's just some pretty drastic price swings, from the highs to the lows. But that will always happen, especially cards with little pops once they start getting flushed out. But that doesn't mean you can't pick up a lot of these cards raw and still have like a ton of meat left on the bone at the end of the day. So, Jimmy Blake said, picked up some crazy cheap slabs lately. $15 to $20 PSA 10s, trainers from 2015, and other company slabs at 8s for less than $10. Yeah, cracked out and looking good in a binder. That's it too, man. I think sometimes we get a little blinded by like super near mint, like top of the line, best quality cards that possibly exist. If you guys are going after binder cards, there are a lot of cards out there that I could think off the top of my head that you definitely want to pick them up in 7s or 8s because those 7s or 8s sell for drastically less than those near mint copies. And there are actually, this gets like, this is blurring a line a little bit, but there's a lot of cards you can pick up in 7 or 8s as long as they look relatively clean, that those raw copies sell for drastically more than those graded copies. So you can actually pick up the graded copy, crack it, and sell it raw. They exist. Like, you have to really like do your research, but it is a disgustingly large amount of those cards exist in that form that you can do that. It takes a little bit of time. The money up front, you tie up some money for a while, but you run the risk of returns, but there's a proper ways to sell those cards too. Like, not to be like shady as a seller, but like if you're selling graded cards and then you're selling a handful of raw cards, you probably should consider like doing multiple eBays. Start to separate your eBays of like what you're selling. Don't sell your graded cards with your raw cards, but like it like blurs a line, I guess, for some people, like whether it's shady or not. But the buyer needs to like start to become a little bit more educated, and the buyers need to become a little bit more well-rounded in order to like not make those mistakes. But it's tough. It's a gray line. I don't know what the correct answer is for it. Oh boy, just skipped to the bottom. uh So Joshua Christian said, "Yo, what up, PK? Hope your Thursday has been going great. You excited for Paldea Evolved?" I am excited about Paldea Evolved ETBs. I am fascinated to see how that promo plays out, and I'm more fascinated to see how that Pokemon Center exclusive stamp promo plays out. If it plays out the way I believe it does, again, super early. We don't know what the condition of those cards are going to be like. If it's like Green Ninja Gold Stars from Celebration, it's not going to be a fun experience. But if it is, better print quality, if those cards do come out clean out of those ETBs, then trust me, we'll know really, really early. There will be a lot of people cracking those ETBs, grading those promos. We'll know, just the same way we knew with Celebrations and that Green Ninja Gold Star, we'll know the same way with these Paldea. But those Pokemon Center exclusive ETBs, where you get the one stamped Pikachu and the starters, and then the non-stamp one, that's going to be a play at the beginning. I'm fascinated to see how that plays out. That might be a crash and burn scenario. That might be a Charizard UPC shitty ass print quality scenario, or that might be Japanese stamp box quality condition play, where every single one you open, and as fast as you can race to the bottom, you're just going to clean up, and you're just going to end up getting all those things for free. I mean, that Pikachu right now so here, I'm right next to me, I got both the Japanese and the Chinese. The Chinese right now, at release, we're selling for like $80. Drop down to 70, 60, 50, 40. Now they're sitting at like 35 for the Chinese. Japanese, a little bit stronger. They're sitting between $40 and $50 right now in a PSA 10. That English one probably will have a similar trajectory. Probably go from like 90 for the early copies, 70, 60, 60, 50. But if that promo can sit between $40 and $50, like after the fact, plus that, and then so probably Pokemon stamp promo is going to sit between 50 and 60, and then that regular non-stamp promo sitting between 30 and 50. There can be plays to be made there. It'll be very, very interesting to see how that plays out. And again, that's just getting packs for free at that point. And promos like that are usually relatively liquid. Not all the time, but in that case, I think that will be a liquid promo in a 10. There's a lot of promos out there. You look at the Shining Ho-Ho from Shining Legends. That's a liquid promo. You look at the Stained Glass Birds from Hidden Fates. That's a liquid promo. You look at the Champion's Path promo. That card has 80,000 of those things graded, and it still sells in a 10 for $35 to $40. That promo is as liquid as it gets. The Green Ninja from Celebrations, if you grade it in a 10, that is still a super liquid card. There are your mediocre ones like Shining Fates. Yeah, it has the EVV Max. It's not like a super liquid card, but that card still sells. But I'm thinking this Pikachu does really well. I think when people look at, and again, those are all specialty sets, I said. Keep in mind, this is a very new thing to start having promos and ETBs. Obviously, Scarlet and Violet base having the first promo, but even that stamp promo is doing very well. But the Pokemon on the artwork isn't like make you stop dead in your tracks type artwork. This Pikachu does change that a little bit, and I'll be fascinated to see how it plays out. Will I be making a play? Yes. Will I be probably losing my ass? Possibly. Do I care? Not really. Either way, there's still packs in there, though. And I've never opened up Pokemon Center exclusive ETBs ever. So this will be the first time I've ever opened up Pokemon Center exclusive product in order to make plays. See how it plays out. Dude, it's going to be race to the bottom, though. As fast as you can go. Like, put your jetpack on and face straight down like Wile E. Coyote jumping off a cliff. Like, it's going to be as fast as you could reach the bottom, it's going to go. But we'll see. You know, I said the same. There's been a lot of promos. I'll give you an example. One of the promos I talked about buying was those on-the-ball Pikachus. You know, originally those on-the-ball Pikachus were super limited. You had to literally play in the league, and then as soon as Game, yes, UK is the name of the store is Game. You had to spend $20 at Game. You got all those on-the-ball Pikachus. If you guys have been watching my channel enough since I was in the old room, as soon as that day happened, where you can buy those, I bought as many as I could from the seller who had the most listed. And what did I do? As soon as I got those on-the-ball Pikachus, as soon as they got to me in the mail, they weren't in my possession for greater than 24 hours. They arrived to me in the mail. I cut them out of all the packs, put them in penny sleeves, into card saver ones. 8 a.m. the next day, they were at the post office on their way to PSA. And when I got all those cards back, those were all first in the market, and they all sold for crazy, crazy premiums. Because I knew when those game on-the-ball Pikachus, when they hit the market at the beginning, you're going to have to get people that stole them from Game, probably end up purchasing a lot of those from employees. But the prices at the release were the lowest, and I knew eventually they were going to go up. And I knew for a fact that the first to market PSA 10s were going to sell for premiums until the later ones. And the later ones dropped drastically after, as soon as that market was overly saturated. But that was a card that was a definition of first to market play. And anybody who was first to market on the ball Pikachus cleaned up. There wasn't a single person out there who lost money on an on the ball Pikachu as long as you were one of the first to market. It was impossible. And it was just like doubling up your money. It was free money. Those on the ball Pikachus, the way I felt about those, I always liked those because I did feel that there was that barrier of entry. And if you're not new to this channel, you know what I mean by barrier of entry. The barrier of entry for a card like that was it just cost a lot of money to have those cards shipped from the UK. So if you're only picking up one or two of those cards, it was impossible to make that play. That was the only barrier of entry that helped that card. The only way you could get rid of that barrier of entry is to do what I did, is order greater than 20 of them at a time, where I was able to get my shipping per card to less than $1. It was like 90 cents per card that I was paying for shipping because I was buying so many at a time. And that was that really, really minuscule barrier of entry. But my God, because that barrier of entry existed, that like ability was there, and it was beautiful. But you got to be there. You got to be there in the now, in the moment, take advantage of it, and then, eventually that moment just moves by like a warm breeze. Sometimes it just passes you by. Pokey Snipe says, it always amazes me how you can ramble on live for 1+ hour time after time. Definitely appreciate all the work you do. I don't know how I do it either, Pokey Snipes. It amazes me sometimes too. Especially when tomorrow night on the podcast, we'll be doing a lot of rambling as well. Did Jen said, Beckett Black Label is going to be the chase for modern Pokemon. BGS 10 of modern Pokemon equals PSA 10 for vintage. PSA 10 for modern is like the equivalent of PSA 8 to 9s. Yes and no. Listen, if you guys are going for the Black Label hunt, I give more power to you. I'm probably leaving money on the table by not doing the Black Label hunt, especially for some of the cards. I gotta do it. I think you're right. So Jen, you're right. I need to at least send some cards to Beckett to at least attempt the Black Label hunt to see if it is in fact achievable, attainable, and worth it. I just never sent cards to Beckett in the past just because it always just seemed so foreign to me, and Beckett's website was always so hard to navigate, and I knew that the Beckett tracking of your packages was so absolutely god-awful because of everybody I ever talked to, that just every person I ever talked to, you even talked to Connor Rock Pokemon. Connor Rock Pokemon is one of like the most OG of people grading with Beckett. Connor was grading with Beckett when nobody was grading with Beckett. And in fact, he was grading with Beckett for all types of stuff. And even Connor Rock Pokemon says sometimes you would just send packages out to Beckett. You didn't know if they received it. Like your tracking showed that it made it to the facility, but there was no way to check on it. You didn't know until just one day, magically out of the blue, Beckett would send you an email saying, oh, hey, by the way, your cards are being shipped out, and that would be how you know. And because of talking to people like him, I was always just like a little iffy. But my God, you look at a card like the Moonbreon, some of those crazy sales, like, what was the high sale? $12,000 for a Moonbreon? I saw in person like a $7,000 sale at the uh, Denver Collecticon. Somebody was walking around with one, and it's just like, I look at those cards and I'm like, I mean, it's cool, but I will never, never, never be the buyer of that card. Like, at maybe for like super niche, super like unrepeatable vintage stuff where like, sure, you have the like ultimate like scarcity and rarity to some of this stuff to have it in a true like pristine black label for vintage, but for modern, I just can't get behind. I don't understand it. That could be where I'm missing out. You know, I think Dan Catchmall Collectibles said in a live pretty recently that he's finally made the Beckett play for one of the first times just to test it out, see what happens. Sometimes you got to dip your toe in the water and see if the water is nice. Flip to Flip said PK, a store here in Canada did a big spring sale. Guess what are the two booster boxes they sold out in one day? Brilliant and Lost Origins. What do you think? Number 2 set, Brilliant Stars or Lost Origin or Crown? So my ranking for Sword and Shield probably goes Brilliant Stars, Crown Zenith, Evolving Skies, Lost Origin. Depending on the day, I could change any of those. The only problem is the reason why I keep going to Brilliant Stars as my number 1 is because I'm trying to look at like future. How are people going to look back on these sets in the future? And removing yourself from the now and like all the crazy hype that's around, I say, in the future, if somebody was just looking back on Sword and Shield, Charizard's still going to be a big Pokemon. And what does Brilliant Stars have? Brilliant Stars has multiple Charizards, but more importantly, it has that alt-art Charizard from like the Sword and Shield timeline. And then Crown Zenith is up there. Crown Zenith is a great set. Ton of huge Pokemon. And then obviously Evolving Skies. And I'm with all the evolutions. And I still believe that the history of the hobby has already been decided. What the big chase card of the Sword and Shield block is going to be will be the Moonbreon. Listen, I do not believe that the Moonbreon will ever like lose its like spot at the top of the mountain. I think Moonbreon is the chase card of all Sword and Shield, and I do not believe at this point, this late in the game, that any card ever like eclipses it in the future. So I do believe, but I do believe when people look back on Sword and Shield, I do believe they'll look at Brilliant Stars. And it's just because of that Charizard. It's the same way as when people look back on XY and they look at like Flashfire. And, you know, Flashfire obviously, you know, big, but then you look at Phantom Forces too. Phantom Forces is a good set too, but Flashfire just has those Charizards, you know? And it doesn't just have like one or two, it has 6 of them, right? Six Charizards in Flashfire. So I think when people look back, they're going to I think that's just how they're going to look at it. I just think the problem is right now, today, we're living in the time of oversaturation of Brilliant Stars. And what I mean by oversaturation means it's just still readily available in booster box form. Not just on your eBay, but more importantly, and the thing that I've said more times, and I've beaten this horse to death, the thing that's going to keep Brilliant Stars prices down for the short term is those booster boxes being available on PokemonCenter.com at $143. It will take for PokemonCenter.com for those booster boxes to no longer be available. And when that day finally does happen, those booster boxes will run. And I think Brilliant Stars will it give Evolving Skies a run for its money? Maybe not. Evolving Skies might just always kind of pull away a little bit too far, but I think no other booster boxes will give Brilliant Stars a run for its money like Evolving Skies. It will definitely be a number 1 or number 2 most valuable set of all Sword and Shield in 5-10 years, in my opinion. But yeah. Skip to the bottom, don't know why. Alright. I did it. I didn't really do it, I just skipped to the bottom. But hey, listen. I ranted for an hour and 5 minutes. I hope that these lives at least give you guys something to listen to at work, or listen to you in your morning ride into work, or your morning ride or your afternoon ride home from work. And if you're listening to this tomorrow, it's Friday. Friday's the best day because you got the whole weekend to look forward to. But more importantly than that, Friday again is going to be the monthly podcast with Cool Trainer Ryan, Rattle Pokemon, and myself right after Ryan's Friday night pregame. It's always fun. I don't know what we're going to talk about. Let me know down in the comments of this video if there is a topic you want us to cover. Listen, we do talk about Pokemon, but if you've watched those live streams, if you watch that podcast, yeah, you know, we only talk about Pokemon for so long until eventually those conversations just veer off and talk about whatever. And in fact, I really enjoy that. I like just talking about whatever. I don't care if you guys, let me know if you want to just know ice cream flavors from like the ice cream truck from 1990s, you know, because that's a good way that, you know, there's certain ways you can judge people. And one of the ways you can judge people and you can analyze people is you ask them that question. You say, in the 90s, you're a little kid, you know, you're yourself, you're 9, 10 years old, you're walking up to the ice cream truck, like, you look on the side of the ice cream truck, what do you buy? Are you buying a Choco Taco? Are you buying a Flintstone push-up pop? Are you buying a Ninja Turtle ice cream? Are you buying a Screwball? Are you buying something real boring like an ice cream sandwich? It's a great way to judge people. And in fact, if that would be a great interview question at a job, because I feel like you can learn a lot from somebody just by hearing the type of ice cream they would buy from the side of an ice cream truck. So, but yeah, guys. Anyways, that was definitely a tangent. Oh, Jimmy Blake said Screwball. So you get the ice cream, you get the gumball at the bottom. All right, that's respectable with your little wooden. Is it a spoon? It's like a wooden. I don't know. It's a wooden spoon, I guess. It's like a just piece of wooden plywood they would give you. Like, here you go, kid. Enjoy your Screwball. Here's your piece of wood. But yeah, guys. As always, appreciate every single one of you guys. If you guys enjoy this channel, if you enjoy these videos, I don't ask you for anything. The only thing I ever ask you, if you just hit that like button. Hit that like button. Goes a huge way with the YouTube algorithm. Potentially pushes this video out to people that have never seen this channel before. And yeah. Yeah, guys, as always, appreciate every single one of you. And I'll catch you on the next video.